What's going on, my grand? Great to chat with you once again. How you been?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I've got Modern Family going on in the background, so
Great
this is
show.
this is like
Great
the
show.
dude, fantastic show. Yeah, not much going on. I mean, obviously there's signing day, which is great. But I'm just enjoying a kind of a little calm before the storm. SEC bowl games will kick off till next week, so it's been a nice little time.
Yeah, it's a good time to take a load off, especially, with the season ending. And this used to be a real dead time, but now with the portal, NIL, the madness that is the early or what we should just call National Signing Day. I don't think it's
Yeah.
early signing day anymore. Let me ask you this, Chris, on that note. What's your favorite National Signing Day moment or story? Or maybe there was a signing day that was more hectic and chaotic than
Yeah.
another. Is there a moment for you, like when you think of National Signing Day, that sticks out to you? I mean, we've seen the hat flips, we've seen live mascots make appearances and commitments.
Yeah.
Anything jump out to you that's a core memory of signing day?
One thing I've only seen one time happen. We've seen hat flips, we've seen all the other stuff, like you said. One thing I've only seen happen once was when Alex Collins was between Miami and Arkansas. And I think he was out of Miami and as a running back. And he decided he was going to go to Arkansas. And his mom stole his actual national letter of intent and drove off with it. One of the wildest fucking things I've ever seen. Because I was like he announced she wanted to go. We've seen like a Landon Collins thing where his mom was like, I think he should have gone to LSU. We've never seen a mom just step in and take his actual national letter of intent and disappear with it. So they didn't. And I remember like Brett Bielema was sitting there. He's like, "Can we just get another one?" And they're like, "No, it's like a birth certificate. Apparently, you can't just get another one." But yeah, so it's those are I guess Social Security number. I don't know the right government example I should have used there. But yeah, I mean, those are always good. My favorite thing, I think, as a Bama guy, the Reuben Foster one, committed to Bama for 2 years, decommits and he's like about to be a senior in high school, decommits to Auburn, but gets his 4-year-old daughter at the time to announce it. So the math on that, I was trying to do very I was very confused. I mean, that was like a senior in high school, have his 4-year-old daughter. I was like, wow, it's a lot more responsibilities than I have even at 30. But then him flipping back to Bama. And then my personal favorite thing I've ever heard in recruiting, Bama used to do this series about what people are doing to get ready and get in shape for like from high school to college and blah blah blah. Outside linebacker Rashawn Evans, he was from Auburn. He like lived in Auburn his whole life, and he ended up committing to Bama. And they asked him what he was doing to stay in shape, and he said, and I quote, "I chase horses." I was like, what the fuck? So yeah, that's mine.
Chris, I grew up around people that, mid 2000s, if you will, that were locked in on the Rivals message boards. And
Mhm.
recruiting was like life, basically. I mean, there's the
Yeah.
recruiting diehards. Were you one of those people as well? Have you always been big into recruiting? Or are you more of like you'd rather pay attention to the play on the field and the recruiting is just the necessary? I mean, it's the lifeblood of every great program, but
Yeah.
where do you fall? Have you always been a diehard? Because that's going to lead me into my next question for you. Um, is it something that you've always had a passion for, or it's just kind of recruiting's whatever? Because
I
admittedly,
used
I've,
to.
I've always told my audience I like recruiting. I'm not one of these diehards that like
Yeah.
I'm not DMing a 17-year-old about how his visit went. Like I
Yeah.
don't care that much. You know what I mean? Like
I used to really get into it when, and this is like 2008, like right when like Rivals was like still really really big, and 247.
mhm,
Like I think it might have been before 247. But like I was big into it then, and I think part of it's because like it was like when Bama started to ascend, and
mhm.
Saban started getting these recruiting classes that were like huge. I remember being very very big into it then. Oh, it's just a different game now. So like now that I do this for a living, one, early signing day is tough because you look at 2000. This is the third year we've had like early signing day, right? The 3 years ago, the total number of kids that were signed on early signing day was like the top 81 out of the top 81 of the top 100 were signed by early signing day. Then last year, 90 of the top 100 were signed on early signing day. And this year, I don't know what the total is yet because it hasn't ended yet, but 95 out of the top 100 have already been committed. So there's not really that much surprise anymore. I can't get into like this whole, I'm going to get super invested into this kid that just committed in July because like, especially with NIL, there's just so much that changes, and it's just it's kind of exhausting. And so to get involved in some kid and be like, oh, this kid's coming to us, this is a huge game changer when there's like 6 months left in his recruiting, don't really enjoy that. And like I said, and now you have the portal. So it's like how do you get super invested into a kid that you're getting and not have some sort of apprehension about like, well, he's probably going to enter the portal at some point anyway. Just that's the way like the nature of college football is.
And you sort of answered my question there, Chris, before I asked it, because something I posed this morning and something we'll talk about today is, I'm someone I still get fired up for National Signing Day. I
Mhm.
think it's a day that really, Chris, not to get over philosophical, but if you boil it down, it really symbolizes hope. I think that's what
Yeah.
National Signing Day symbolizes, right? It's the opportunity to add new players to your roster that, if you're a school like Alabama, will continue your great track record of success and continue to uphold the standard of the program. If you're a school like South Carolina, it gives you hope that
Mhm.
tomorrow may be different than yesterday. But admittedly, with the portal and NIL becoming taking over the sport, really, like I even find myself this morning waking up not as fired up as I was a couple years ago, just because, to
Yeah.
your point, like, I mean, I think you're almost doing yourself a disservice if you get carried away getting hyped up over a commitment when he may not even be on your roster in 2 or 3 years. And it almost, to me, Chris, maybe I'm going too far, but I feel like it comes off hypocritical when it's like when guys commit and sign, it's like they're the greatest thing ever. And I think of like Marshawn Lloyd's a great example.
Yeah.
When he committed and signed, he was the greatest thing ever. He transfers, he's a bum. And it's
Right.
just like, it's kind of icky seeing both sides of it for that player. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
for you, like, I would, it sounds like you're saying too, like the portal and NIL, it just at minimum changes the way you look at it. It's
And
different than it used to be.
I don't want to be pessimistic about it because there is still like a huge part of like hope that comes with it. Like look at Auburn, like what Auburn's doing. Ole Miss a little bit too. They're doing it in very different ways. Ole Miss is kind of going after the portal more and really owning that. And then you look at Auburn. Auburn is I like it's fun to watch what Auburn's doing. Their fan base is super into it because they're trying to get to a place where they well, think they've been before, but like never consistently. But like having Hugh Freeze come in and say, hey, like we're not going to really attack the portal as much. We're going to go try to develop kids from high school, build this thing from the ground up, and like look, he's getting 2 5-star receivers, and there's not a position on that team that they struggled at more this year than wide receiver, including the quarterback. And so you get 2 5-star receivers. You might flip a third one from Bama with Ryan Williams. He's not going to sign until signing day in February, but like you might get 3 5-star receivers, and then you kind of like you just build this excitement. So like the level of hope part is really fun. I do hate the whole thing of like because it's so plain as day. It like one of my biggest things is I always say this: if we're going to talk about sports, we're going to do it in reality. And I know that I have like biases and stuff like that, and I'm sure that like the fandom in me like is let out like more often than I probably admit. But like watching a timeline on Twitter and you see someone that's like, man, fuck yeah, I'm so pumped. We got like Dylan Raiola. He's like number 1 recruit in the country. This guy's awesome. And then he leaves to Nebraska. It's like that kid sucked. We didn't want him anyway. And it's like I'm watching this in real time. You can put the tweets next to each other. Like, here's where you said this. Here's where you said that. That part is it's just kind of stupid. I think like more than anything. But it's what fans do. It's what we all do because we're all fans. That's how we all got into it.
On that note, Chris, sticking with it, the recruiting side, let's run through the SEC recruiting rankings. The Alabama Crimson Tide, of course, second nationally behind the Georgia Bulldogs, who, of course, I don't think it's a surprise. Those are 1-2. But the SEC looks like this. And this includes, I believe, yes, Texas and Oklahoma. This is via 24/7 Sports. Just run down the list 1 through 16. Georgia, Bama, Texas, OU, Florida is your top 5. Then Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, South Carolina, Texas A&M at 10th. Then you got Ole Miss, Mizzou, Kentucky, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Vandy rounding out the top 16. And again, I think what you have to keep in mind, Chris, as you mentioned, like a school like Ole Miss is 11th. You might look and say, oh, man, they're not recruiting well. But look at the portal haul, right?
Right.
Like that's the other side of the coin, if you will. I think they're second or maybe even – I think they're second portal recruiting behind Colorado, who just continues to stack it up in the portal. Going back to, or first I'll ask you this. Is there anything out of what you've seen out of the SEC recruiting, anything jump out? You mentioned Auburn, what Hugh Freeze is doing,
Mhm.
flipping the wide receiver position. I mean, is there anything else? I know it's a ton I'm not asking you to break down every single SEC recruiting class, but at first glance, what's notable to you of the SEC recruiting rankings?
I mean, like I said earlier, like the Ole Miss and Auburn kind of going at this thing in two separate ways. Um, I think one of the things that's so difficult, and this is like from like a job standpoint, and I don't care how this sounds, because like I feel like I'm good at my job, and I
Mhm.
really enjoy doing my job. But I will also tell you, there's not a thing that I am less confident in covering the entire year than this part of the year, which is
Mhm.
like the portal, and then what do you call it, and then high school recruiting rankings, because it's so difficult to evaluate, because you're like especially when they come from the portal, because it's like you kind of see like the duality of man type thing with the fans again, because it's like, I guess, duality of fan, where it's like, okay, we've lost, like Georgia has lost five-star players in the portal, like former 5 stars.
Mhm.
Four of them didn't play like at all. And so if you're looking at it like, man, shit, we lost like these five-star players. And then then you get them in the portal and they're 4 stars now or 3 stars or whatever. And then, or if you're bringing in those kids, you're thinking to yourself like, oh, we got a former 5 star. Like, just it's just very difficult to evaluate like what is this level of talent? Like, he was a 5 star out of high school 1 to 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden is he not as good, or is he just not developed? That part is just very confusing to me, to sit here and try to figure out like how to get to like a home like foundation of how do I know where the talent is on all these teams. I think that we're obviously like not doing divisions anymore, but the SEC West, it seems like Ole Miss has really skyrocketed up the rankings there, and I think might be like a mainstay in that little cluster of teams. The other thing is I look at like South Carolina and teams like Tennessee. Like Tennessee, it was something we all thought was just going to like ascend, right? Like it was going up. Um, I think that there's a really big opportunity for Beamer, who's going to have to um, what do you call it, take advantage of this specific class, where you might lose a couple guys, but at the same time, like if you're able to hit the portal and have a good balance of high school recruiting, which he seems to have done, right? Like regardless of the record, the culture that I think he's kind of put in place there is speaking to these recruits. Like the balance that he has, I think, is what makes me feel more at ease if I'm a fan. If I'm looking at a team and I'm thinking, this is the most fucking long-winded answer ever, by the way. But like if I'm looking at a team and I'm like, okay, our coach is going only after high schoolers like Auburn, like, I don't feel super comfortable about that. If I'm an Ole Miss fan, we're only seeming to focus on the portal. Don't know if I like that. Having like a balance of that is like where I think you want to be. That's seemingly where South Carolina is living right now.
I mean, Chris, just ask Clemson fans how they feel. Zero portal commitments for them. Zero. So
It's like the fourth straight year, third straight year. It just
you would have thought that Dabo would have learned by now that
You know what? I'll
he's
say it.
gonna.
Clemson isn't man enough to go to the transfer portal. They don't want to go to the transfer portal.
That's it. That's
Get in
it. They
my
don't.
business.
They don't have what it takes. I love that.
That's
I
right.
love that. Chris, to your point, I guess we have not spoke since some of the transfer portal stuff in Columbia has happened. Obviously, the big news: Rocket Sanders coming over to the Gamecocks.
Mhm.
Your thoughts on that acquisition? Again, I know there's been a number of other guys they've added on. A couple tight ends, of course, running backs, if you will. The Jaden McGowan situation, if he actually signs, we shall see.
Mhm.
Rumors he may go to Boston College, but Rocket Sanders is the headliner. Your thoughts on that pickup and what it means for Carolina? Again, this is a guy that you and I and many others have watched in the SEC for quite a while.
Yeah, I'm not saying any of this to be a dick. Okay, I'm gonna preface it by that. I don't fucking care unless there's an offensive line he can run behind, because that's kind of what he had at Arkansas with Sam Pittman, being able to recruit that specific unit. South Carolina has not, like they have brought in some really good talent. There's just no line for them to run behind. Spencer Rattler running for his life for most of the year last year. Hard yards have been hard to come by on the ground for South Carolina over the past 2 years. If Shane Beamer came out and signed 25 kids and 15 of them were offensive linemen, I would be fine with it. I need you to focus on that. I think Rocket Sanders has the potential to be really good. I was admittedly surprised he went to South Carolina, not because it's not a great school and a great program, and I think on the rise in this conference, but because if there's one thing that they have really struggled at, it's developing offensive linemen or even bringing in elite talent at offensive line, and that's what worries me. I think it's a great pickup for South Carolina. It's a hell of a job by Shane Beamer to be able to pitch him and say to come to Columbia. it just worries me because you got to have something to run behind. That's what I would like to see.
And on that note, Chris, ironic timing because we just learned during your spiel there that Jalen Nichols, who got hurt in the spring
Yeah,
game, was supposed to be the best offensive lineman. He has entered the transfer portal. This just happened within the last 5 minutes. So there you
that's
go.
unreal.
Things only get tougher on the offensive front for South Carolina. Hey, Chris, let's do something we both enjoy, which is talk about some actual football on the field.
Yeah.
Specifically, I want to zero in on the college football playoff, Alabama and Michigan. Uh, this one is one for the ages. It's a helmet game for sure, right? It's going to
Mhm.
be iconic at the Rose Bowl. Your initial thoughts on the matchup? I mean, I think Michigan's a slight favorite in this one. You know,
Mhm.
you and I talked about some of the fun stories on and off the field that follow. But I mean, I have not locked in my pick yet, Chris, but I
Yeah.
feel like Nick Saban, Alabama with extra time to get ready. I mean, you got to like your chances. And it's like, it's almost like Bama's playing with house money here, which is interesting for a program like Alabama to have that, not have the pressures of being expected to win it all. Your thoughts on the matchup as a whole, what you see that you like, what can give Bama some problems, and
Yeah.
which way you're leaning going into the game next week.
Well, one, Michigan is really good. I hate them. I hate them, and like, bias aside, like, as a Bama guy, I don't like Michigan specifically this year because they cheated. I mean, flat out. And I don't. Again, I think we've talked about this before. Like, the whole mindset of like, well, everyone does it. Well, you're the only fucking idiots that got caught. So, like, I mean, like, I don't know what else to tell you. You cheated. Your coach missed half the season. He
Mhm.
missed half the season. That's how big of a deal the cheating was. Now, you need to give a lot of tip of the cap and kudos to that team for being able to win and go undefeated and 13-0 without their coach being there for half the season. I want Bama to win this game for a lot of reasons. Part of it is because, my God, what a fucking just whistle through the graveyard season for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, that they've been able to kind of just skate through this, and the NCAA and the playoff committee seem almost too scared to punish them severely. Anyway, in terms of the game, Michigan's going to pose some problems for Bama. I think, especially up front on the offensive line. We've seen Bama get gashed at times this year in the run game. They've been really good at getting after the quarterback. I think they lead the SEC in pressures, but at the same time, they have had some sort of a vulnerability, I think, against the run. That's something I think you need to be careful about. The other thing is, like, this is a game where Jalen Milroe, he has continued to get better and better every single week, and it's been awesome to watch. It's been so great for a kid that's been counted out, I think, for most of the season, that he's going to come in here and has led his team to, beating Georgia and now going to the college football playoff. Love the fact that Bama gets to be the underdog. Love the fact that this is in the Rose Bowl. You cannot turn the football over in this game. I have this pulled up right now. I'll just read this to you. I posted this graphic a couple weeks ago, and these are the numbers for Michigan as a defensive unit. Score, or just as a team. Scoring margin. Here's our national rank. First. Scoring defense. First. Pass touchdowns allowed. First. Penalties per game. First few, like the least in the entire country. Red zone touchdowns allowed. First. Pass defense. Second. Total defense. Second. Total turnover margin. Second. Opponents' first downs per game. Second. Red zone trips allowed. Second. 20+ yard plays allowed. Second. Total turnovers. Third. That is, I could keep going, and there's like 20 different like categories where they're ranked in the top 5. It's a very, very good and fundamentally sound and well-coached football team. Well, even despite it only being coached for half the season. But I mean, it is a really good team. I do love the fact that Bama is getting a little bit of the underdog situation here, because you don't get to have that at Bama a lot. And so I'm excited for that part.
Marler, does Bama's, dare I call it, inconsistencies worry you at all? Because I look at Alabama this year, and at their best, they're good enough to beat Georgia and beat anybody. At their worst,
Yeah.
I mean, they almost lost to an Auburn team that lost New Mexico State. So, like, does that worry you at all? I guess with extra time to get ready, though, I
Yeah.
guess with extra time to get ready, you hope that they will be ready to put their best foot forward in that game.
Well, and get healthy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think that, like, Bama was playing the SEC championship game without a lot. I mean, like, they played the entire fourth quarter without the best defensive back in the country with Kool-Aid McKinstry. They played the entire game without Jason McClellan at running back. Um, I love this team as a Bama guy. I love this team because it is a team that I've counted out like several times this year. I thought, like, I said what was going to happen at Texas. I said it in the summer exactly how that was going to play out, and I was spot on about it. But after watching that USF game, it was like, fuck, man, like that, you had such an uphill battle to climb. I love the fact that you give Nick Saban time to prepare. Like I like because Saban with time to prepare is fucking. I'll take those odds any day of the week. But I do think that this is the only thing that worries me is a little bit of the overconfidence standpoint because I think that people kind of have this idea of like once Bama gets to the playoff, like they've already beaten Georgia, they've already beaten these other teams, like like what's left in front of them. Like they should, of course, they should beat Michigan. Michigan always, chokes in these situations or whatever. I mean, there's three other teams in this playoff, and I've never said this. I think since Bama's been in it, there's three other teams in the playoff that could easily beat Alabama. But like I said, the coaching matchup and this team, I have been as pessimistic about them as anybody. They have overcome adversity every single week. And I just want to remind everyone that I know that doesn't care that you brought up the Auburn game. It was 4th and fucking 31, and all you had to do was knock the ball down. And Bama is somehow still in the college football playoff, which is just wild.
Chris, I was just throwing you the alley oop there, man. I knew
Yeah.
you'd slam dunk it. So
I just
wanted to,
like this is listen, all jokes aside, let me like romanticize this whole thing. You're a college football fan just like I am.
yeah.
I know that people hate Bama. I hate the Yankees, and I fully fucking get it. Our fan base is arguably the worst in the country because there's like a lower education that comes with it as well. It's not like Georgia and Tennessee as bad. I get all of it. It has been so fucking fun to watch and be like what feels like an underdog for a lot of this season, and to have some of these moments, man, like like the Auburn game, the Georgia game, like just it's been a really really fun season.
By the way, Chris, I wanted to go back to you mentioned the graphic you made regarding Michigan and the breakdown. I wanted to say congrats to you because I went to your timeline, I think it was yesterday, and I saw the graphic you had, I think pinned at the top, the JJ McCarthy, Connor Stallions graphic. Saw it almost got 1 million views. So
yeah.
I know not many people will pat you on the back for that, but I'm
it.
in the same grind as you are, and I know you work hard on those graphics. So I want to say congratulations because
dude,
that one
I will
crushed.
tell you,
That one crushed.
I made that last Tuesday, and it's like I left out one game. I'll be honest.
It made me laugh. It made me laugh. I will say. It made
it's
me
still
laugh.
an actual graphic, but I was
Right.
1,000% poking the bear at them. But
Right.
I sat there and I posted it, and I told you last week I couldn't come on because I was actually I think I just ghosted you because I was so fucking sick for like 4 straight days. I was just out, and I remember posting it, and I woke up like 2 days later. I feel like, and I was looking at it, I was like, what the fuck happened here? I got Michigan fans all over me. So, also, before I go, because I know it's probably about time for me to go. Ryan Miller, who's the other one that I'm somehow drawing a blank on now? I don't know how. What the hell? Austin Gregory. I kept wanting to say Andrew Gregory. Appreciate the shout out in the chat. You guys have been great. I've really enjoyed coming on here all year. I hope everyone in the chat and you has a great Christmas, except for John Edwards K, whatever that guy is. That kind of sucks. But everyone else, I hope you guys have a great Christmas.
I love it, Chris. It's been a pleasure having you on. Last thing, or maybe last two things. First off, SEC bowl game that you're most excited to watch outside of the college football playoff. That one's very easy, obviously. But
yeah,
is there a game that you look at like you can't wait to watch that one? It's
yeah.
got to be Auburn, Maryland, right? I mean, it's got to be Auburn, Maryland. I mean, it's just
Talia's out.
great
I
game.
hate that. No, so yeah, there is, and I'll do a shameless plug while I'm at it because we just posted. I'll be very clear too. I didn't make the graphics for this one because they kind of suck. But on the Saturday Down South YouTube page, we did a podcast that's coming out I think today, and we did like a video segment as well called Bet the Bowls, and we talked about all the different bowl games. We got 2 more episodes coming out. But go to the Saturday Down South YouTube page. It's a really good. It's really really good information. The one that jumped off the page the fucking moment they announced it was Mizzou and Ohio State because I think it's such a good opportunity for Mizzou. Like love this opportunity for Mizzou because it almost feels like a Power 5 versus G5 situation. It's like because people just disrespect Mizzou like they're a fucking inner city substitute teacher. It is ridiculous. Like they just refuse to give them any kind of respect. So I think that Mizzou going into this game, from a betting standpoint, there's so much to like from Mizzou. But also from just a standpoint of Ohio State being 2-12 in their last 14 games against the SEC and having to go up against a team that I think has been really, really underrated all year. Love that. So that's the game I'm interested in, I think, most outside of the Bama game, obviously. I'll tell you a fun fact if you have any bettors in the group. Did a deep dive into some really good bets for that game. Fun fact about Mizzou that people don't talk about enough. Mizzou is they I don't know if they're the only team that's done this, but Mizzou has not trailed at halftime all season. In all 12 of their games, they have not trailed a single time at halftime. They have been leading at halftime by an average of 9.3 points per game. In 11 of their 12 games, the only game they were not leading was against Georgia, where they were tied 10-10 at the half. So, really fun fact there if you're betting on the games.
So I'm assuming you got first quarter, first half,
Dude,
all of
listen,
it.
you know how I
I've
roll.
I've
Listen,
never seen somebody love to play. Yeah, I've never
listen,
seen somebody love to play quarters and halves more than you do.
I
So
went 68% this year.
no,
It,
I
it
was going to
was
say I respect it. I respect the hell out of it. I respect the hell out of it.
here's all your bets right now. Mizzou to score first is only minus 120 right now. They've scored first in 9 of their 12 games. They led in the first quarter of 8 of their 12 games. They led at halftime in 11 of 12, like I said. Their team total is only 10 and a half. They averaged 16.6. I mean, there's just so much to like in that game from a betting standpoint. And it's all first half, baby.
Let's get rich. Let's get rich. First
Right.
30 minutes. Chris Marler, Saturday Down South. Chris, one final thing. Favorite Christmas movie as we go into the Christmas holiday?
I mean, I love Die Hard a lot. I watched that last night for the first time this season.
I
think,
gotta admit something, Chris. I've never seen Die Hard before.
oh my
I haven't.
god, it's so
I
good.
don't know if you saw Barstool did a segment. They said we've all got that movie that we're ashamed to admit we've never seen. I
Yeah,
don't know if I'm ashamed, but Die
yeah.
Hard is one that is so popular that I've just never seen it. Just never
It's
seen it.
really good. It's really good. I like that. I think Elf is good. I'm over A Christmas Story because they just play it all the time now. But yeah, that's a really good one. I don't know. You put me on the spot there. I don't really know. I'm still trying to get into the Christmas spirit. But
Christmas Vacation, National
Christmas
Lampoon
Vacation's
Christmas Vacation.
good. I mean, that's like a top 3 for sure, top 5. But yeah, Die Hard for me. Die Hard 1 and 2 are great.
I love that. There you have it. Chris Marler, Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored. Chris, let me say yet again, thank you so much for taking the time to come on in this calendar year. It's been a blast, man. I get great feedback from the audience every single time you come on the airways. Many folks say that you are their favorite guest that we have on weekly. So, man, I can't say thank you enough. And
Yeah,
obviously, the
man.
relationship that you and I have built over the last couple of years, man, it's been really, really cool. Back from the when we started in the bearded tomato days to now, man, it's been one hell of a journey. So I
Yeah, man.
appreciate
I
you.
appreciate it. You have a great Christmas, and everyone in the chat, like I said, have a great Christmas, and I'll just talk to you after.
Yeah, man. Merry Christmas to you and yours, Chris, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, guys.